I want to actually read a quote from Bella because I think it's appropriate. They used to give us a day. It was called International Women's Day. In 1975, they gave us a year for the woman. Then from 1975 to 1985, they gave us a decade, the decade for women. I said at that time, who knows if we behave, they might give us the whole thing. Well, we didn't behave, and here we are.
Someone who I am so proud to say is with us tonight, who is the CEO, president, not so new anymore, but pretty new, of the Ms. Foundation, Teresa Younger. Please welcome Teresa Younger.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I never met Bella. I grew up in North Dakota, and so the idea of what was going on in this part of the country and internationally was far removed from the world that I grew up in. I've been with the Ms. Foundation for about 8 months, and the founding mothers, of which Letty is one of them, Gloria Steinem and Marlo Thomas and Pat Carmine, those women all were very good friends with Bella, and my very good friend, Patty Russo, worked for Bella, and though I never met her, I knew of her. And in 1995, the Ms. Foundation sent the largest delegation of American women to the Beijing conference. And what that has done for this country has been totally instrumental in the work that's getting done in the indigenous communities and Native communities here, in the Asian communities, American Asian communities here in this country, in the African American communities here in this country, because those women were so inspired by what was going on. And today those groups are fighting to break down the stereotypes of what is going on as they fight to make sure that sex-selective abortions we're telling the truth about what's happening with that, as we're talking about making sure that Native women have access to emergency contraception, as we're fighting to make sure that we have economic security and development for the women and the men and the boys and girls right here in this country. It's been an honor and a privilege to work at the Ms. Foundation and to work under the guise of women who paved a way that, they didn't just pave it, they dug it up, they molded over, they walked on it, they repaved it because it wasn't done right the first time, and they were going to make sure it got done right. The thing that I have learned and the thing that I appreciate most in my conversations of understanding who Bella was and her legacy was that she was somebody who didn't give up the fight. She wanted you to misbehave, and she wanted you to make yourself and other people feel uncomfortable, because uncomfortable is the only way we get to change. Because when we're comfortable, we don't need to change. And so even in every story I've heard today, it was about pushing us out of our comfort zones to strive us to be better and to do better. And I think that's what Bella was about, and that's the vision by which we work at the Ms. Foundation as a National Women's Fund, and putting our collective voices, our collective energy, and our collective dollars together to make that change happen, to push us all out of our comfort zones, to make this country a model, and to make sure that we understand we have so much to learn from our sisters across the country and across the world in this action. So it's an honor to be here, and thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to introduce a friend of mine. I don't know, we go so far back I don't remember. Gail James, who's from the middle of the country, who has not recovered from the last election because she really thought they had it. She really thought they had a candidate in Kansas and they were going to turn that state around. And she hadn't gotten over it yet. Gail is Vice President for U.S. Women Connect, which was the anchor for the U.S. Women's Agenda. Well, I was going to say during the Clinton years, because we haven't had one since then, and maybe she can tell you something about how we're going to try and revive that.
My conduit to Bella Abzug and her legacy, and there are 3 elements of that. One is the U.S. Women Connect, which is we would like to weave together a women's agenda for this country, which we do not have, and we're trying to do it state by state. And so we need organizations and women on the ground, as well as the visionaries and activists, to come together and say, we know what we'd like to see happening in our state, weave it together as a U.S. women's agenda, and also see how that fits in the global context, because this is how Bella impacted my life. When I was junior faculty, Marilyn Fowler took me by the hand and said, we're going to go to the Women's Foreign Policy Council, and Bella Abzug is going to be there, and we're going to meet Mim and June, and we're going to talk about women in foreign policy. And this was a new concept at those years. I won't tell you how long ago that was. But actually, if you look at the legacy of Madeleine Albright and Condoleezza and Hillary, these secretaries of state owe everything to Bella Abzug. And women in foreign policy and having a role in global. Close, I will say that Marilyn actually introduced me to Bella in the 90s at a women's conference that was somewhat sad. People were demoralized. It was a time when the ERA wasn't passing and there was a lot of demoralization happening. It was a sad conference, actually. And Bella said in her wheelchair, frail and still with a booming voice, I don't know how she accomplished that, but it still boomed out, please don't let this die after me. Please keep this going. Please make this happen. And here we are. This is now 25 years later, and we still have, as Krishanji said, we still have to make it this decade. We still have time to make this the women's century, but we're not there yet. And Bella really is watching, waiting for it to happen, because whether we say it's going to die or it's going to live is really part of Bella's legacy. Thank you.
One of my sheroes, because I can't read small print without my glasses, but I want you to meet Stephanie Ortoleva, who is a lawyer. I suspect she had sessions with Bella. Stephanie used to hear cases at the Supreme Court. And she is president and founder of Women Enabled International, and she is the one carrying the torch to make sure that those women are included in anything that happens, any plans, anything at the UN. Stephanie?
Ms. Stephanie. Thank you. Such an honor to be here and honor Bella Abzug. You know, whenever I get tired and just don't want to do any more, I know that Bella would kick me in the butt and say, Stephanie, time to get up, get into work. You know, it's so amazing that when Bella was at Beijing, she was using a wheelchair in the mud. And there were lots of women with disabilities at Beijing in the mud, trying to figure out how to get from place to place. And, you know, Bella, as my sisters tell me, because I was an idiot and not there, Bella would, you know, I'm sure was leading everybody and saying, we're going to get there because we just have to go. I have another strange connection to Bella in that some years ago, Liz and I worked in the same office. Her first job out of law school, I think maybe my second job out of law school. And,
Tell them where it was.
it was the U.S. Department of Education, and I think both Liz and I were far too bored to work there. It was like, there wasn't all that much happening, you know. There was a period, pardon me?
Well, we were in the Office of Civil Rights.
No, we were, I don't know about how much civil rights was going on there either, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, Bella is indeed my shero, and I've been rereading this wonderful book that's about Bella with stories from her friends, and you know, you laugh and you cry and you scream and such. But you know, Women Enabled International is doing something that not too many others are doing, which is that we're here at Beijing Plus 20 working for the rights of our disabled sisters. And you know, we did one little thing. We reviewed some of the country reports for Beijing, and guess who isn't there? Bella wouldn't like that, I would think. So anyway, thank you for having me here, and go just like knock them dead at CSW and don't let them give us any crap, okay?
Next, Patty Russo, who is the executive director of the Women's Campaign School, I would say it the other way around, at Yale, who I've met, we met a couple of years, or we met several years ago, and she actually worked for Bella in Washington. Is Harold Holzer still here? No, because there are some of the other old timers here. Okay, but go ahead, Patty, it's up to you. Here we go, Patty Russo.
Okay, thank you. So June, she left. She left. Okay, now I can really talk about her. June, my story, my employment story is not as elegant as June's was, but I was head of the Women's Center at GW at the time. I was 19 years old, and like every young, fabulous feminist in DC at the time, I wanted to work for Bella, like everybody wanted to work for Bella. So, of course, I was told, thank you so much, and saw the resume going into the circular file. So, go, and I'm going door to door for every, all the, 8 women that were in Congress at the time. So then I go to the bathroom, in Canon office bathroom, and ladies' room, and there's a woman who's crying, and I'm like, are you okay? And she goes, oh, I just got really bad news. I've got to leave, my boss is going to kill me. And I said, no, they've got to understand, this is an emergency. She said, my boss is Bella Abzug. And I said, good luck to you, I wish you well. Went back, running back, and I said, really, truly, I will do anything. I just want to reiterate, I will do anything. I'm secure enough to make coffee, I will do anything. And all of a sudden, and it's managed chaos, right? So the phones are going crazy because the receptionist was crying in the bathroom. And Bella comes out, the way Bella, makes an appearance and says, sit! Answer the phone! Sit! That was the beginning of me. So then I fast forward to meet Liz, and when she's yelling and screaming, either over the phone or in person, preferably, I feel like, thank God, I've got Bella back. And every day when I'm working at the Women's Campaign School at Yale, which is a bipartisan, which is a challenge, issue neutral, which is more challenging, political campaign training program for women, I remember the days when Bella would be walking down the hall with Shirley Chisholm and Barbara Mikulski, who was in Congress at the time, and then the next day, she'd be with Margaret Heckler. What the fuck? She'd be with Margaret Heckler, Republican from Massachusetts. But that's how she rolled. The best part, though, was, and I hope there's no press here. Well, I don't know if I really give a shit. The way she would work over the Speaker of the House, Carl. She used him like a beach ball. Poetry in motion. I would say to her, I would think to myself, because again, 19 and pretty quiet at the time, thinking, just do what she wants, just like she's pummeling you. And he was a really little guy, you should Google him. He was a really little guy, and I would just say, why is he doing this? When is he going to learn? So she had an urgency about everything, from answering her phones to passing legislation, for being an extraordinary networker among women. So on Sunday, Teresa and I were marching at the UN International Women's Day. I know many of you were there. And at one point, we were given the opportunity to sing boldly and badly. So of course I thought, I said to Teresa, let's channel Bella. So whenever they said, tell me what a feminist looks like, we would say, this is what a feminist looks like. That was for Bella.